Okay, using the sheet that I gave you to complete these notes, I'm adding extra things that the book didn't talk about, or maybe elaborate a little bit more on what it did talk about. If you didn't pick up a copy of these notes from me, you can access it on the Canvas calendar. All right, so let's talk about some of the foods. Some common things, again, remember ancient Egypt was a little bit drier, so they commonly would have things like wheat and barley. They had emmer, which was their version of wheat. They had barley, which they made beer from, and they actually drank beer with every meal. They also had flaxseed, which is kind of a health thing that you can find today around here, but they used a lot of that to also make their linen clothing. They had Mediterranean-style vegetables and fruits, lettuce, lentils, which are beans, leeks, which are like onions, melons, cucumbers, grapes, dates, and figs. Meat, they had a wide variety. They had beef, lamb, duck, geese, fish, antelope, gazelles, leopards, hares, which of course is rabbit, and ostriches. So again, they had a lot more access to a variety of foods. The rich had a lot more of that variety. The poor had a lot of meals that were based on bread, beer, and fish, because those would be the things that they could access easily and cheaply. Marriage and life, I think there's a lot mentioned in the reading about this. Boys got married around ages 14 or 15. Girls were slightly younger. Now that seems crazy that they're going to get married at 12, 13, 14, or 15. But if you realize that the average person lived to be about 30 years old, that's midlife. So that's not really crazy in that standards. Now, there were people that lived much longer, and there was Ramses, for example, lived to be 90. And so some people did, especially people in upper class, or life as a pharaoh was much easier, and not as dangerous. So they might have lived longer. Clothing and appearance. I mentioned flaxseed. They had linen clothing. They left it this natural off-white color. They did have dyes, but they didn't use it on their clothing. They liked a lot of things to be clean. They rubbed oil onto their skin to make a shiny appearance. Both men and women wore makeup, jewelry, wigs, and perfume. Egyptians paid a lot of attention to the way that they looked. And cleanliness was very important to them, and so a lot of times they would completely shave off any kind of facial hair, including their own hair, and that's why they wore wigs. And of course they had mirrors, and so that was important that they could see how they looked. A lot of the jewelry that they had would be made out of gold, and of course that was more for upper class and royalty. Gods and goddesses. They had many gods and goddesses, again, over 700, but only a few were actually worshipped regularly, and a lot of them were depicted as human-cat combinations. And again, like in ancient times, sun, land, environment kind of gods were the most important. Priests would perform rituals and offer prayers and sacrifices to these gods. They believed that every human had a spirit in them named Ka, and it was found in all people, and so that meant that they would be reincarnated. Their writing. Ancient Egyptian writing was called hieroglyphics. Today they do not use hieroglyphics, they use Arabic. There were 3 phases. The first were where pictures represented words. That's kind of what most of us are, we've known about. The second phase was where pictures would represent sounds and syllables. And the third is where pictures would represent letters. And so most people don't know about those 3 phases. They wrote on papyrus, which was made from reeds along the Nile River, and they used a reed dipped in ink, very similar to what we did with a feather in early times in the United States. The Rosetta Stone is what helped us to translate hieroglyphics. Jean-Francois Champollion discovered this cliff that had this writing on it. Actually, it has 3 different writings: hieroglyphics, Demotic, Egyptic, and then Greek. Since we knew Greek, we could translate the Greek, and then we figured out that the hieroglyphics, the Demotic, Egyptic, and the Greek were all saying the same thing, just written in 3 different languages. So you can see the Rosetta Stone in the British Museum today. If the pictures of the animals or symbols face left, that's the direction you start reading from. If it's facing right, then you start reading from right to left. So it kind of differed as ours. So on the left is a picture of part of the Rosetta Stone, and you can clearly see the 3 different styles of writing. And again, remember, hieroglyphics are now easily translated because of this. And then again, they wrote them in columns, but you read the columns right to left or left to right, depending on which way the picture was facing. All right, embalming or mummification. This was a 70-day process. The first step, they removed the internal organs, and yes, they even removed the brain, because all of this was stuff that they needed in their afterlife. They didn't carefully remove the brain like they did the other organs. They basically took what I would call a knitting needle up through the nose, kind of scrambled the brain and pulled it out in parts. They put all of these parts in jars and buried those as well with the body because they would need it in their afterlife. The second step of embalming and mummification was to soak the body in a drying solution and then fill it with strips of linen and sawdust because it would collapse if you didn't. The third step was to heavily wrap the body in linen, which is of course the mummification process that we're all familiar with, like at Halloween time. The fourth step would be to put the body in a sarcophagus, which is a tomb, or not a tomb, but like a box, a coffin. Many of the pharaohs had several sarcophaguses, not just one. The fifth step was the body was taken to the tomb or pyramid and buried. And then all of this careful process and the dry conditions of Egypt, really what is the reason why when we find a body in ancient Egypt, it is so well preserved. For example, Ramses, who was nearly 90 years old when he died, when they discovered his body, this was about 3,000 years after he was buried, and you can see the body on the right, just how well preserved it is. It's not just a skeleton. You can kind of see that. And so that just shows you how well preserved it was, not only because of the whole process, but also because of the dry conditions. All right, pyramids. Of course, it was built for a pharaoh's tomb. It had no significance as far as religion other than they believed in life after death. The first pyramid was built for Pharaoh Dosher, and Pharaoh Dosher's pyramid was built around 2639 BC. The Great Pyramid, which is what most of us were very familiar with, was not the first pyramid because it was constructed about 100 years later at 2540 BC, and there were 3 different pyramids built there, one for Khufu, one for Khafre, and one for Menkaure. So King Khufu, or Pharaoh Khufu, was the Great Pyramid, and then his sons had the 2 smaller ones. The Great Pyramid is one of the ancient wonders of the world, and it was constructed out of over 2 million blocks of solid limestone. And depending on where those blocks were located, of course, the bigger ones were located at the bottom, and the smaller ones were located towards the top. They were anywhere between 2 to 15 tons, and each of the sides are aligned with each of the cardinal directions. In other words, one side completely faces north, the other side east, the other side south, and the other side west. They clearly used geometry to build it and to get the large blocks up to the top. There were approximately 100,000 men and over 20 years to build this. And within the pyramids, there are actually 3 rooms or chambers. One is the king's chamber, which of course is where the pharaoh would be buried. the Queen's Chamber, which was the first wife or the pharaoh's favorite wife, and the gallery or hall where all sorts of goods, gold, vases, all sorts of things were buried there that they believed the pharaoh would need in his afterlife. There's only one entrance to get in, and clearly today you cannot see it, but at the very top you can see that almost was a smooth limestone finish on top of the blocks, but most of that has worn down, so now the blocks are completely exposed, but it wasn't like that. There was a sphinx out in the front, and legend has it that if somebody would enter the Great Pyramid, this lion-human combination would come to life and protect the pharaoh. And again, there is the largest one in the middle for Khufu, and then his two sons are the smaller ones. All right, King Tut. King Tut was discovered in 1922 in this Valley of the Kings where there were lots of pharaohs that were buried. His mummy had 3 different sarcophaguses. One was larger than the next, which is pretty common. Napoleon, for example, I think had 7 sarcophaguses to make him appear much larger. So he died around 1337 BC, and again, his body wasn't discovered until 1922. The 2 pictures on the right are pictures of his head and feet, so very well preserved considering how old this body was. He died at 18 years old. He took over Egypt at age 9. And there's lots of speculation of what caused it. A rhino injury, a bone infection. They weren't really sure. On the cover of our textbook is the far left sarcophagus of King Tut, which is the most famous. And again, a lot of things. The crown was very common. A beard was depicted, which was very common. They would have a staff or a sword in their hands as well. And of course, it was made out of gold. All right, Hatshepsut was the first woman ruler in ancient Egypt, and she was the daughter of Thutmose I, and she did marry her half-brother, who was the pharaoh for a while, and when he died, she resumed the power and was the first woman to rule ancient Egypt. Although Cleopatra is more famous or infamous, Hatshepsut was the first Egyptian pharaoh. Many of the statues would depict her almost like as a male, because you can see in that smaller statue, it appears that she has a beard, which was a common way that all pharaohs were represented on statues or on their sarcophagus, as this previous picture of King Tut, and was often addressed as His Majesty. All right, so we're going to compare pyramids to ziggurats. Ziggurats, remember, were built in Sumer, pyramids near Giza. 5 to 7 layers for the ziggurats. The pyramids were 481 feet tall, or the Great Pyramid was. It was made of clay in the ziggurat temples, limestone for pyramids. There was 1 for each city-state for a ziggurat, 1 for each pharaoh for pyramids. The purpose was a temple for gods for a ziggurat, and it was a tomb for a pharaoh as a pyramid. The ziggurats had do not still stand, but there are maybe a few layers that still do. Of course, the Great Pyramid still stands today. What does it look like from the side? A wedding cake or smaller boxes. That's a ziggurat. A pyramid, it of course appears as a triangle from the side, and from the top it appears as a box, but not with the smaller boxes inside. Ziggurats were built around 3000 BC because they were the first civilization. Pyramids a little bit later, around 2600 BC. There were no chambers in the ziggurats, 3 chambers for the pyramids, no windows in the ziggurats, no windows in the pyramids, 1 or more entrance in the ziggurats, only 1 for the pyramids. Ziggurats mostly had plants, trees, vegetation, never on a pyramid. The center of religious and economic social life for ziggurats. It was outside the city. The pyramids were never in the middle of the city because it didn't have any relation to the economy or social life. In the ziggurats, remember, they used the arch, and there was a rectangular doorway for pyramids.